Welcome to our DP3 tutorial. We have made this video as a supplementary aid to your manual, assuming that you are already familiar with the basic Amiga and Workbench functions, such as copying disks, saving to disk, accessing menus, etc. If not, we suggest you obtain our tutorial for the Amiga 500, which was very favourably received in both Amiga Format Magazine number 18 January 91 and Amiga Computing number 33 in February 91. As with our Amiga tutorial, we have divided the tape into sections, and you will have seen a brief indication of the contents of each section on the screen while I have been talking. As we progress through the sections, you will quickly realise what a powerful software package DP3 is, and that practically the only limiting factor is your own imagination. With practice, you will soon be able to create quite complex animations with ease and accuracy. In section 6, we shall show you in detail how to produce the animation at the beginning of this tutorial. Assuming you have made copies of your 3 disks, load and access DP3 from your program copy, and let us move on to section 1. If your screen at this point looks different to mine, it is because I have a hard drive fitted. When you load DP3, you are presented with a screen format requester. The default format is low-res 32 colours. We shall deal with the other formats later in the programme. For the time being, click OK. This brings up the printing screen, with the title menu screen bar at the top and the toolbox and palette on the right of the painting area. First we will look in the bottom right corner at the palette. This consists of the 32 colours which are currently accessible. Immediately above the palette is the colour indicator. To make working on the painting area more pleasant, let us change its colour. Click any colour in the palette with the left mouse button. The circle in the colour indicator changes to the colour selected. I have chosen yellow. This becomes the foreground colour, and any painting etc. we do on the page now will be in yellow. Now change the background colour. Select grey in the palette and click it with the right button. You could of course have selected any of the 32 colours. The old colour remains until you clear the painting area. So try it now. Click clear directly above the palette, and now the background replaces the old. Perhaps this is an opportune moment to get acquainted with the undo tool to the left of the clear button. Click undo with the left button, and this will undo your last action. There, the old background colour has returned. Note, undo only reverses your last action, providing there has not been an intervening mouse click. If you had clicked clear twice, for example, undo would not have reversed the clear instruction. Now click clear to bring back the grey screen. At the top of the toolbox there are 10 built-in custom brushes, 4 round, 4 square and 2 made up of separate pixels, and below these are various painting tools which we shall deal with individually. So let us paint. You will notice that when you move your cursor to the screen, it changes to a crosshair with a dot in the centre of 1 pixel diameter. This is the smallest unit discernible on the screen. Move the cursor to the top of the toolbox and click with the left mouse button on one of the custom brushes. You notice that it becomes highlighted, denoting its selection. Return to the painting screen and paint. Holding down the left mouse button, draw anything. If you click a custom brush with the right mouse button, when you move back to the screen, the word size hangs on the cursor. To increase or decrease the size of the brush, press either mouse button and move the mouse. Actually, a much easier way is to select the brush with the left button in the normal way. Return to the screen and press the plus or minus keys to alter the brush size. You can, of course, change to any other painting colour simply by reselecting with the left button. Now return to the screen and press the right button and paint over what you have drawn. This has the effect of erasing, but what you are actually doing is painting with the background colour. So now you have learned the most important basic rules of painting, which are as follows. Select foreground colour with the left mouse button. Select the background colour with the right mouse button. Use the left mouse button to paint with the foreground colour and use the right mouse button to paint or erase with the background colour. Before we move on to the tools, let me suggest that as soon as possible you learn to use the keyboard to select tools, etc. A full text is given in Appendix B in the manual. I can assure you that in time you will find them easier and quicker than always using the mouse to select the tools and/or menu commands. We move on to the first of the tools, the airbrush tool. A quick demonstration would seem the best way to explain how it works. I will very crudely sketch a mountain. Then select white as the foreground colour. Now select the airbrush tool by clicking its icon. Position the brush and press the mouse button. You see it acts like a spray, so spray on some snow. Selecting the airbrush with the right button enables you to size the spray nozzle. Move to the page and hold down the left button and drag the mouse until the size is required, then release. Holding down the Shift key while painting constrains the movement vertically or horizontally, depending on which direction you move first after you press the key. Now select a medium-sized brush for easier viewing. Then select the dotted freehand tool either by clicking with the left mouse button or pressing the S key. Use this tool for freehand painting. Hold down the left mouse button and draw a straight line slowly. Now repeat at a faster rate. You see you are painting in a series of splats. When painting slowly, the line is continuous. As you speed up, the distance between the splats increases. Holding down the Shift key while painting restrains the tool to move vertically or horizontally, depending in which direction you move immediately after pressing Shift. Now click Clear and select the continuous freehand tool, keyboard D. This draws unbroken lines, but lags behind if you draw fast. It works better with the smaller brushes. Experiment with the different sizes. This is 2 tools in one. Clicking at the top left corner draws lines. Clicking at the bottom right creates filled shapes. Filled with either the foreground colour or the background colour, depending on whether you press the left or right mouse button when you paint. If you don't complete a shape, this is done automatically with a straight line from the last position to the starting point. The Shift key works as with the dotted freehand tool. Holding down the Alt key while you select the tool causes a shape to be outlined with the brush currently selected in a spacing requester. Let's try it. Select the requester by clicking the straight line tool with the right button. Select Airbrush and click OK. Select the bottom right corner of the dotted freehand tool with the left button while holding down the Alt key and draw a shape outlined as requested. There, you see the shape being outlined with the airbrush as we requested. Click Clear and clear the screen and bring back the spacing requester. Click on Continuous, which is the default setting, and then click on OK. Now select the Straight Line tool. As you might expect, this tool draws a straight line. To paint a line, click the icon with the left button and return to the screen. Position the cursor at the beginning of the line. Hold down the appropriate mouse button and drag the mouse to the end of the line, then release. The Shift key also works this tool, and holding down the Control keys leaves traces as you paint. Clear the screen and select the Curve tool with the left button. Position the cursor where you want the curve to begin. Hold down the button and move to where you want the curve to end. Then release. Move the mouse to drag the line to the arc and shape you want, and then click the mouse button. Holding down the Shift key while painting with the Curve tool enables you to line at the ends of your arc either vertically or horizontally. Now select the Unfilled or Filled Rectangular tool. This paints a rectangle using any brush. Clicking in the top left corner paints an unfilled rectangle to the spacing requester settings. Clicking in the bottom right corner paints a filled rectangle, filled with the current settings of the fill requester. Click the tool icon with the left mouse button. Position the cursor where you want the rectangle to begin. Hold down the button and drag the mouse diagonally to form a rectangle. When the correct size, release the button. Holding down the Shift key constrains the rectangle to the same number of pixels in width and height, but as the pixels are not square, the figure also will not be exactly square. Select Be Square from the Preference menu, and then your shape will appear square. Holding down the Control key causes the rectangle to leave traces as you paint, as with the previous tools, and holding down the Alt key as you click on the Fill tool outlines a filled rectangle with the brush setting currently on the spacing requester. Both these have previously been demonstrated. Clear the screen once again and select the Unfilled Filled Circle tool. This paints circles using any brush. Clicking in the top left of the tool icon paints unfilled circles using the settings on the spacing requester, and clicking the bottom right corner paints a filled circle as depicted by the current settings on the fill type requester. After clicking, position cursor where you want the centre of the circle to be. Hold down the mouse button and move the cursor to form a circle. Release the button when the correct size. Selecting B square from the preference menu will ensure that the circles appear circular, although frankly that is not an option I have ever found necessary. Holding down the Control key and the Alt key works in the same way as previously demonstrated. Now clear the screen and select the Unfilled Filled Ellipse tool. This paints an ellipse shape with any brush. Selection as for the other tools. After selection, position the cursor where you want the centre to be and click the mouse button. Move the cursor in any direction to form the shape you require and hold down the left mouse button. You can now move the mouse to rotate the ellipse to the correct orientation. Then release. Control and Alt keys work as before. Clear the screen once again and select the Unfilled Filled Polygon tool. This paints a polygon shape using any brush. Position the cursor on the page to place one of its corners. Click the button and move out in any direction to pull out a side. Click to tack down each corner. Clicking on its point of origin completes the shape. You can complete the shape without bothering to search for the point of origin if you have selected the Filled Polygon tool by pressing the spacebar. This does not, however, work with the Unfilled tool. The Control key and Alt key work as before. That completes the actual drawing tools. Select the Magnify tool. This splits the screen into two areas with the right side magnified. To do this, click the icon and position the box over the part that you want to enlarge and click again. You can scroll the magnification window by using the arrow keys, and you can change the degree of magnification by clicking the Zoom tool. Left button to enlarge, the right button to shrink. To cancel Magnify, click the icon again. Now select the Fill tool. The Fill tool fills an enclosed area in accordance with the settings in the Fill requester. The default fill is a solid fill. Click as usual with the left button. Move the can over the enclosed area so that the tip is in the area and click the mouse button. The default size of the spout is 1 pixel. If the shape being filled is not entirely closed, the fill will leak out. Pressing the spacebar will stop this. The various types of fill are detailed in the Fill requester. We shall cover these in the next section, the palette. Now select the brush selector. This creates brushes from any image on the screen, a most important and powerful tool. Click the icon with the left button. Its highlights, but does not change its shape. Hold down the left mouse button and drag the large crosshair over the area you wish to make a brush. Release the left button and a copy of the image is stuck to your cursor. You can use this in every way that you can use the built-in brushes to paint or make shapes. When you select it with the left button, the original image remains intact on the screen. If you hold down the right button to form the rectangle round the image when you pick up the brush, then the image itself is picked off the screen, so you are able to duplicate and/or move brushes around as you please. If you click the brush selector twice with the left button, it becomes highlighted. It also changes to a polygon shape. Now you can use it as you did the polygon tool, to click around an irregular shape if you want to pick it up very accurately from a background. The left and right buttons work as before. Also the spacebar can be used to complete the polygon if desired. We have now covered the individual painting tools, but some of these can be modified, so let's take a closer look at the spacing, gridding and symmetry requesters. Spacing requester. Click the straight line tool with the right button. This brings up the requester. The default setting is continuous. N total defines the total number of splats that will occur along the line. By clicking in a number gadget and backspacing to delete the number, then typing in the new number, you can alter this to your requirements. Let's type in 10 and demonstrate. You will see that now we have 10 splats on our line. Change the number to 4 and we have 4 splats along the line. Every nth dot sets the number of pixels between each splat. Again, you can alter this by typing in the number you require. First line was drawn with 8 pixels between each splat. We will alter that to 20. You will see that the distance has now increased between the splats. The airbrush we have already demonstrated. The number in the order gadget is the number of sprays applied at each pixel on your line. This tool has already been demonstrated. The tools affected by the spacing requester are the straight line tool, the curve tool and the unfilled shape tools. Now let's look at the gridding requester. Gridding requester. Clear the screen and click the grid icon with the right button to display the requester. This restricts your painting to grid points. Try it. Select the dotted freehand tool and paint. Now alter the grid settings. Bring up the select requester again. Alter the X and Y calibration. Type in another number, say 15 in each. Now paint again and notice the difference. The number refers to the number of pixels between the grid points. Clicking Adjust gives you visual means of altering the grid spacings. Click on Adjust and your cursor changes to a matrix displaying the current spacings of X and Y values. To change the values, press and hold the left mouse button and drag the matrix to the desired shapes and size, then release, and you will see when you paint on the points of that matrix. Now let's look at the Symmetry tool. The Symmetry tool allows you to paint symmetrically over the entire page at the same time. To display the symmetry requester, click the tool with the right mouse button. Choose either Point or Tile. Let's choose Point first. With Point, the symmetry works around a central point in either mirror or cyclic format. Mirror gives a mirror image of each point, while cyclic gives direct duplication of each point. This sounds confusing, so let me demonstrate. You can select the number of points by altering the order gadget. We will try 2 and 4 in both the aforementioned modes. Select either the dotted freehand tool or the continuous freehand tool. First, let's look at the mirror image with 2 points. You see the mirror image? You have a total of 4 points on the screen. Now select Cyclic with the same setting in the order gadget of 2. Now you see you only just have a direct duplication. You only have 2 points on the screen. Similarly, 4 points in mirror gives 8 points, and so on. Now with Cyclic, you have the 4 points only. Now select Tile. Note the settings for width and height. Click OK and paint. Now alter the settings to say 6 and 4 and see the effect. The settings are, of course, the number of pixels between the image vertically and horizontally. You see the difference? Now clear the screen and bring back the requester. Click Place. This lets you determine the position of the central point. If you select any other tool other than the dotted freehand or continuous tool, you will not see the mirror image until you release the button. To demonstrate, we will select the straight line tool and paint away. You will You will not see the effect until you release the button. Don't forget that you can use any brush you care to choose, not only the custom brushes. I will pick something up from the screen as a brush to demonstrate, but obviously the settings for width and height must be large enough to accommodate your brush. Now let's move on to section 2, the palette. To display the colour palette requester, click the colour indicator with the right button or press P. You will note there are 6 sliders on the palette: red, green and blue, the primary colours, hue, saturation and value. You can modify any colour by using these sliders. It will help if you remember the following. White is the maximum of red, plus green, plus blue, and black is no colour. To demonstrate, click on the sliders in turn and move all 3 primary colours, red, green and blue, to the top. The indicator turns white. Move all 3 sliders to 0 and it turns black. The absence of one of these primaries gives that colour complementary colour. The absence of blue gives its complementary colour of yellow. The absence of red gives cyan and the absence of green gives magenta. Try this. Put red and green to 15. Put blue to 0 and this gives yellow, which is the complementary colour of blue, or you could say the negative of blue. Moving the saturation slider down, the colours get lighter. Eventually becoming white. Moving the value slider down, the colour indicator gets darker, eventually going to black. The value of 0 on the value slider is always black. The hue slider refers to the position on the spectrum, and by sliding this provides a quick change of pure colours throughout the range if you put the saturation and value sliders to the top. So experiment. Click on a colour. You will notice the sliders move to the necessary position to obtain that colour. Now move 1 or 2 sliders. Notice the colour change. Notice also that the same colour in the palette under the toolbox changes. When you have produced the exact colour you want, click OK to clear the requester, and you'll see that the colour you modified is available in the tool palette. i.e., if you click it now with the left mouse button, this will become the foreground colour, but you must cancel the palette requester by clicking OK. Another way to obtain a variety of ready-made colours and to understand the theory of colour makeup is to display the preference palette. Choose Load from the picture menu and load it from the tutorial drawer on your art disk. Again, your picture will look different to mine because I have a hard drive fitted. This gives you a variety of colours in red, orange, yellow, green, blue and violet, and low saturation, medium saturation, pure colours in the middle, medium value and low value. You may find the subtle variation on the 6 colours quite useful. Now redisplay the colour palette and click on any colour on the reference palette. You will see the slider has changed to the correct position, so if any colour on the reference palette is to your liking, this is one way to quickly obtain it. Experiment by clicking on various colours and watch the position of the sliders to help you understand their function. Now clear the screen and then redisplay the palette. You can rearrange the palette to suit your requirements for making spreads, ranges, etc. as follows. Click a colour, say green, and then click X. X stands for exchange, and then click another colour. You will see they have changed places. Click Undo. Click green again. Click Copy. The cursor has the word to attached to it. You see the green has now been copied in the place that you indicated. Now let's create a spread of colours. Click green again. Click spread and then click the red. And you see that you have created a spread between green and the red indicators. This works best if the two colours are not too far apart on the spectrum, say red and orange. Now create a range. Change back to default palette by picture menu. Change colour, default palette. Click one, then a colour, then range, and then another colour. You'll see a thin white line bordering the colours between, denoting the range you selected. Click OK. Now draw an unfilled shape. Display the fill requester by clicking the fill tool with the right button. Click the direction of the fill gradient required. You have 3 choices. Then click OK. The type of fill you have chosen is depicted in the menu bar window. Move the fill tool over to the enclosed shape and click the left mouse button. I will now demonstrate wrap fill. This is best seen if the pattern brush is a different shape to the object being filled. So draw a pattern, then a circle. I have already drawn a pattern on the spare page. The spare page is selected by pressing J on the keyboard. Draw the circle roughly the same size. Click the brush selector and pick up the pattern as a brush. Display the fill requester, click pattern from brush, the pattern of your brush appears in the window, and then click wrap, then OK. Position the fill tool so that the spout is inside the enclosed shape and press the left mouse button and your pattern is wrapped around the circle. Now let's move on to the next section, text. Click the text tool with the left mouse button. Move the cursor to the page and click when you have positioned the cursor. This leaves the cursor in place. Now type. When the text gets to the end of a line, it continues on the next. You press return to start a new line as required. Delete as necessary by using the backspace key. If you click the mouse elsewhere, you cannot use the backspace key to delete. Obviously, you change the colour of the text by changing the foreground colour. I will now show you how to select various fonts. Click the text tool with the right mouse button. This brings up the font requester, and select a font by clicking from the list. Fonts can be various sizes according to style. Select the size by clicking on the arrows beside the size window. Select any style by clicking bold, italic or underline, or a combination of all three. And then click Show to see what it looks like exactly. There are two extra fonts on your art disc. To obtain these, double-click the text icon ABC on the program disc before you run Deluxe Paint. Do that now. Quit the program, that's Shift Q, and double-click the colour text icon, then Deluxe Paint 3. Display the font requester again and insert the art disc. Click in the Draw Edit field and type Art:/Fonts and press Return. If you only have one drive, follow the on-screen instructions. You can also use fonts from other programs by loading in a similar way. There are Cara fonts available on disc, 4 on each disc. I will show you these, but they are rather expensive. If the basic Deluxe program lacks anything, in my opinion, it is the limited variety of fonts. You will see the two extra fonts now available in the font requester. Click on Chisel and then Show. We will use the fonts palette to obtain the golden colour font that you have already seen in the requester. One point about these two extra fonts on your art disc, and also the Cara fonts, they are only available as capital letters, but nevertheless do not forget you can alter the size you require by picking up the text as a brush and using the items and the secondary items in the brush menu. Go to the brush menu, down to size, and secondary menu to stretch, or press the capital Shift Z on the keyboard, and then move the mouse and stretch to the size that you require. Go back to the brush menu, restore brush, or press Shift B on the keyboard to get your original brush back, and then press capital H, small h, or the plus and minus keys on the keyboard to alter the size. The letters H and capital H halve or double the size at each press, as you see there. X and Y turn the brush horizontally and vertically. I will now demonstrate how to make an infinite variety of colour combinations for a font which appears to be made up of one colour, but is in fact made up of several colours. Load the brush again and then select the Magnify tool. You will see that the brush is actually made up of quite a number of different colours. Display the colour palette and then click on one colour in the brush and alter this colour by moving the sliders. Click on another colour and repeat. Now you can appreciate that you can produce some very attractive fonts. As promised, to conclude this section of our tutorial, I will now show you the Cara fonts that are available as extras. First, Chisel, which is slightly different to Chisel Serif on your Arts disc. Then Marble, Chrome, Column, Cast, one I particularly like, Brick, Bevel, Chisel, Granite, and Marble. All these fonts, of course, can be italicised. Now let's move on to that very useful part, the world of stencils. To make a stencil with DP3 is quite easy. All that is required is to specify the colours. When a stencil is made of a colour, that colour is locked or protected. You cannot paint over the locked colours until you turn the stencil off. There are numerous advantages to the stencil system in DP3. Let's look at the fact that you cannot paint over a locked colour, particularly when using the airbrush. I will draw a rough sketch of a mountain and put on a snow cap with the airbrush. This is made very easy. Choose Stencil Make from the Effect menu to display the stencil requester. Click on the mountain. This locks the colour concerned, or you can click on that colour in the requester. Click Invert, then Make. You have now unlocked the colour of the mountain by clicking Invert. This is the easy way to lock all the colours except one to save you the trouble of clicking all the others individually. Now paint on some snow. Select white as a foreground colour. Select the 1 pixel brush in the airbrush tool. Move the cursor over to the mountain and spray. Because you have locked every colour except the colour of the mountain is the only part which will accept the paint, so there is no splashing or overlap. To demonstrate another very useful feature of the stencils in DP3, we will make a lion appear to walk behind a rock. I have already drawn some rough sketches on a spare page. You will find using a spare page very useful. To select it, just press J and move to and from the spare page. I'll pick up 2 grass banks I have drawn as a brush on the spare page. Return to the main page and stamp them down. Go to the Effects menu and select Stencil Make. There is more than one colour of green in the mound, so click each colour and you see they are now locked. Click Make on the requester. You will note an S appears in the menu bar to denote stencil is on. Now return to the spare page and pick up the lion. Note the spare page is not affected by the stencil. A good tip is always to turn the stencil off when you pick up a brush from your page, in case it contains colours you intend to lock. Experience will clarify this. Now you see the line appears to go behind the mounds. When you have the stencil on, you will notice that the S appears in the menu bar. You turn the stencil on and off by pressing the tilde key. That's the key to the left of number 1 on the keyboard. Turn stencil off. If you turn the stencil off, the line appears in front of the mound. You can also define stencils by area as opposed to colour. We will achieve the same effect in this way with the line, etc. as before. Clear the page. To do this, you need to turn the stencil off first by pressing the tilde key. That's the key to the left of number 1 on the keyboard. Pick up the tree and the leopard from the spare page and stamp down on the main page. Then select Background Fix from the Effects menu. You have now fixed the background, including the tree and the leopard. You will notice that a B appears in the menu bar on the main page. Now pick up the 2 mounds from the spare page and stamp down as before. Go to the Effects menu and select Stencil Lock FG, that's Lock Foreground. We have now locked the 2 mounds as a stencil again. Pick up the line once more and you will see that we have achieved exactly the same effect. Turn off the stencil by pressing the tilde key and the line appears in front of the second mound. You will notice the B for the fixed background still remains in the menu. Click Clear and the 2 mounds disappear because you have turned the stencil off, but the tree and the leopard remain because they were fixed in the background. Select Background Free from the Effects menu. And now, when you press the Clear button, the tree and the leopard disappear. And finally, another feature of the stencil that you may find useful on occasions. You can utilize the stencil mode to superimpose a pattern on a difficult shape without overlap. You can use this on text, for instance. First of all, select Stencil Make from the menu and click Clear to clear the stencil. Click Make, and now I will quickly draw a shape in the form of the letter B, and also, very crudely, a pattern of sorts. I think you will find the stencil feature a very useful part of DP3. As I said earlier in the tutorial, it is essential, especially with stencils, that you learn to use the keyboard. Now go to the Effects menu and select Stencil Make. Click on the B. You see that its colour has been locked. Now click Invert. To unlock that, unlock all the other colours, and then pick up the pattern as a brush. Turn the stencil off while you do so by pressing the tilde key. Now turn the stencil back on. The S reappears in the menu bar. The brush disappears from the end of the cursor momentarily, but when you position it behind the bee, you can see the pattern through. If you click the left mouse button, you superimpose the pattern on the difficult shape with no overlap. Let's move on to section 5, perspective. Perspective enables you to work in DP3 in 3 dimensions. With the mouse you can only move your brush in 2 directions, horizontally and vertically. Perspective adds a third movement, backwards and forwards. In DP3 the screen coordinates are: the x-axis runs horizontally, the y-axis runs vertically, and the z-axis at right angles to these, i.e. backwards. It helps if you think of your screen as a box. To rotate a brush we use the keypad. And by pressing enter on the keypad switches perspective mode on and off. You can also enter perspective mode by selecting Perspective Do from the perspective menu. For X rotations, use keys 7, 8 and 9. Y rotations, use keys 4, 5 and 6. And Z rotations, use keys 1, 2 and 3. The keys under the -1 give anti-clockwise rotations, and under the +1 give clockwise rotations. 9, 6 and 3 reset each axis rotation. The 0 key resets all rotations. The point key allows you to set the perspective center, which is defaulted to the middle of the screen. And finally, the minus key, which is used to do a perspective fill, which will be demonstrated later. Perspective is best illustrated by rotating a brush. I have made a brush which will hopefully enable you to follow the direction of rotations and axes. Remember that the y-axis of this brush is north-south. The x-axis is east-west. Now choose Perspective Do from the perspective menu, or press the Enter key on the keypad. On the screen now is a crosshair, which indicates perspective center, and the brush is enclosed in a frame with a large crosshair over it. In the menu bar are 3 figures, which indicate the rotation angles of the brush. Try the keys number 2 first. The third number on the right of the menu bar increases as the brush rotates. The brush has disappeared. Press number 1 to rotate the brush in the reverse direction. When the title bar numbers shows 0, the brush appears in the frame, or you can press 3 for a quicker result. Try the X and Y rotation with the 7, 9 and 4 and 5 keys. Pressing 0 will always return all the brushes to their original orientation. You can stamp a brush down at any point by pressing the left button on the mouse. If you press Shift with the keypad number, the brush rotates by the angle step. The default setting is 90 degrees, but you can alter this as required in the perspective requester. To display, click the grid tool with the right button while you are in perspective mode. Rotation always occurs round the handle. This is usually from the centre of the brush. Clear the screen and rotate the brush 90 degrees by pressing Shift key 2. Put the brush back to its original 000 rotation by pressing 0 on the keypad. Note now that the brush's y-axis has become the screen's x-axis. Put the brush to the right corner by pressing Alt-X or choosing Handle Corner from the brush menu. You can see the cursor has moved to the right corner of the brush. Now rotate the brush again 90 degrees by pressing Shift 2. The difference in the rotation now is clear. Display the requester again and you will see that there are options available under Angle Step, namely Screen and Brush. We will demonstrate the difference. Change the angle step to 45 by clicking in the Edit field and typing in 45. Now let's try rotation in Screen Coordinates System. Position brush in the lower half of the screen. Press Shift keypad 2 to rotate 45 degrees on the Z-axis, and then press Shift keypad 7 to rotate -45 on the X-axis. Click the left button to paint the brush down. When you rotated the brush on the X-axis of the screen, the X-axis of the brush was tilted sideways. You will have noted the angles in the menu bar. Now click the grid requester with the right mouse button to redisplay. Click brush and the OK. Reset brush to original orientation, keypad 0. Position brush in the lower right corner and press Shift keypad 2 as before and then Shift keypad 7. Click the left button and paint the brush down and you see the difference again in the orientation. Note in the brush coordinate system, rotations always take place about the brush axis, i.e. in the last example you first rotated 45 degrees on the Z-axis, which positioned the brush diagonally. So when you rotate 45 degrees on the X-axis, it was this diagonal axis which was used. So remember that in the brush mode you can only reproduce the accumulative effect of rotations if you execute them exactly in the same order. When using screen coordinates, it is immaterial what order you execute the rotations, and also, when you're in the brush mode, the angles in the bar are those of the screen, so they can be used to reproduce the brush orientation. Now let's try moving the brush around. Clear the screen, choose Perspective Reset to set everything to the default settings. I will load the brush I have prepared again. Make sure you are in perspective mode and at 0, 0, 0. Moving your mouse can move the brush in only two directions, X and Y, but you can move in the third dimension, i.e. the Z-axis, by using the keyboard. Press the colon key once or twice. The brush moves forward. To move backwards, press the hash key on the right of the colon key. If you hold the Shift key down, you move in bigger steps. When you move the brush, you will see that it moves to and from the direction of the crosshair in the middle of the screen. This is perspective center, or point of view. You can place that anywhere you choose by selecting Perspective Center from the Effects menu and clicking in place. No matter where you place it, the default position is center screen. Your brush will always move towards the point of view when moving on the Z axis. Holding down the Control key while in perspective mode temporarily fixes the Y axis. Hold down the key and move the mouse forward, and the brush moves away along the Z axis on a fixed Y axis. You can fix the X axis by pressing Shift keypad 9, the Y axis by pressing Shift keypad 6, and the Z axis by pressing Shift keypad 3. Another way to move a brush backwards is to lay the brush down after rotating 90 degrees on its axis. So reset the brush, press keypad 7 to rotate minus 90 degrees on the X axis and move the brush. Now the mouse can move the brush in and out because it is moving on the brush's Y and X axes. The only axis the mouse can move on, but it acts like the screen Z axis. Finally, we will produce a picture step by step, which embraces a lot of the potential of DP3 perspective mode. We shall draw an inside view of an art gallery. First, let's prepare the floor, so go to the spare page by pressing capital J. I will quickly draw a floor tile using the grid so that my pattern is completely symmetrical. I have previously drawn wall and ceiling tiles to save time. Now pick up the pattern as a brush and return to your main screen. Press Enter to select perspective mode. Now press Shift 7 to lay the brush 90 degrees on the X axis and the 1 key to twist the brush on the Z axis. Print your brush down with the left mouse button, and if you are happy with its orientation, press the minus key to fill the screen. Press 0 to reset perspective and press Enter to leave perspective mode. Let's now go back to the spare screen to create the walls. Pick up the wall tile and return to the main screen. Go back into perspective mode. Press the 4 key and line the brush up with the floor. When you are happy with the position, press Shift G to engage grid and stamp brush down. Now continue to build up your wall. Disengage the grid by pressing Shift G again, and then rotate your brush using the keypad to form the interconnecting wall. Once satisfied with the size and position, print the brush down. If you have required more than one tile to complete the wall, you would need to use the grid again, as before, to position accurately. Now for the ceiling. Pick up ceiling tile from spare page and return to the main page. Enter perspective. This time press Shift 8 and then key 2 to obtain the same two angles as the floor position brush. Now, if you make the wall a stencil, it will not be overdrawn. So select Stencil Make, click on all the wall colours, click Make, then press Fill Screen. Now to finish off, we will create a picture on the spare page and then put it on the wall using perspective mode again. our picture completed. Perspective is not easy to assimilate, or for that matter to explain, but my advice is to experiment and think through what you're doing. One final tip: when you pick up brushes in perspective and use the grid, pick them up as accurately as possible, as the grid measures the total area you pick up, not just the area of the actual brush. Don't forget the undo tool. It's quite easy to forget this facility, and above all, learn to use the keyboard. Now let's move on to the final section, animation. Put, the system of animation is to flip through a number of pages quickly with slightly different images on each page to give an illusion of movement. This illusion can also be created by rapidly changing the colours and not by changing images. As this is animation at its simplest, let's look at this first. Select the freehand tool and a round custom brush. Make the brush a reasonable size. Press the tab key and you'll see some colours which have already had a range created. Now select one of these colours. Then select Cycle from the Mode menu or press F7 on the keyboard and paint. Now press the Tab key to start Cycle and press the Tab key to stop. You will see movement of the colours gives this illusion of movement. Clear the screen. I'll load a picture I created earlier. Now if you look at the palette, you will notice I have 6 blues all the same. Now I'll press Tab and you will notice that I've also made a range for the blue, including the one white above. Now by selecting the dotted freehand tool and the smallest brush, select any colour in the range we have just seen and select Cycle from the Mode menu. To move the menu bar and tools while painting, press F10, and to get it back, press F10 again. Now I'll paint in some snow. Now that is done, press Tab to see the finished effect. Impressive, isn't it? And it is only one frame. Now let's move on. The first step in building animation is to create frames or pages to build on. Choose Frame Set from the Animation menu. The Set Frame requester appears. You can click in the Counter Cred Edit field and enter the number of frames you require. Type 10 in the Edit field. This gives us 10 frames to paint on. Click OK. Select a large brush and paint a dot on the left of the screen. Choose Control next from the Ani menu, or easier, press 2 on the keyboard to move to the next frame. Now paint a dot just to the right of the first. Press 2 again and paint another dot as before, and continue. Notice that the frame numbers change in the menu as you paint. When the dot reappears on the left, you will have completed 10 frames, and we will be back on frame 1 as now. This is the simplest of animations, so let's play it. Choose Control Play from the menu or press 4 again on the keyboard and watch the dot move across the screen. You can play once by pressing 5, and you can control the speed of animation by pressing the arrow keys. The left arrow key is to slow down and the right arrow key to speed up. You can always press 6 and play the animation in ping pong, which plays the animation in both directions. Now click and clear all frames. We still have 10 frames set, but clear. Now for simple movement of an object. DP3 has a much easier way called anim painting. Simply put, the frames flip automatically as you paint. Now set the frames to 20. So select a large round brush, click the dotted freehand tool, hold down the left Amiga key and paint holding down the left mouse button and drag the mouse. The frames flip as you paint, so one image of your brush is placed on each frame. When you reach frame 20, you loop back to number 1. When you stop, press 4 on the keyboard to play the animation or select Control Play from the Anim menu. To stop, you press the space bar. The arrow keys, etc. work as before. Animated brushes work very well with anim painting. Clear all frames. Now load an animation brush from your DP animation disk. With the animation brush loaded, you can paint with it in the normal way by pressing the left mouse button. Notice the brush is also animated. Each single click of the mouse advances the brush one frame. Obviously we wouldn't paint to one screen, so clear this screen. Hold down the left Amiga key and now paint. As before, the frame counter flips through frames 1 to 20 and keeps flipping through these frames until I stop painting. Press the 4 key to run the animation. Now you can really see the power of an animated brush by the amount of the time they save. We will show you how to create your own animation brushes later in this section. Now let us create an animation using the Move Requester. The Move Requester moves your brush on the screen. Clear all frames. I have a brush prepared which I will load and will stamp it down on the main page. Display the Move requester by selecting Move from the Anim menu or pressing Shift-M on the keyboard. Clear all the edit fields if necessary. You will notice that the first thing on the Move requester is the three fields X, Y and Z, and under each is an edit field for distance and angle. Distance is obviously the distance your brush travels, and angle the angle of rotation. The numbers entered are pixels for the X and Y axes, but are not necessarily 100% accurate in terms of pixels for the Z axis. Click in the distance edit field for the X axis and type in a number, say 170. Click Preview. Your brush is enclosed in a wireframe and moves on the X axis. You do not have to stop at one axis. Experiment by putting in a number in all three axes if you wish, and see where the brush moves. Try anticipating this before you click Preview. Type 60 in the Y distance. Press Preview when your brush moves on the Y-axis vertically, north-south. Type 200 in the Z-axis. Click Preview and your brush moves backwards on the screen. The Move requester also lets you rotate the brush along a single axis or in combination. Click Clear to clear all the edit fields, then click in the Z angle edit field and type in a number, say 360, i.e. you want to rotate the brush 360 degrees on the Z axis. Click Preview. The brush, or rather the wireframe, rotates clockwise. You set a minus number to rotate anti-clockwise. The cyclic button, when selected, allows you to continuously play animation, which loops back on itself and plays without a seam or a hiccup, as opposed to the usual type of animation, which ends at the last frame as per Move requester. Again, it is easy to understand when visually demonstrated. Set 20 frames and stamp the brush down in the middle of the screen. Then display the Move requester by Shift-M. Clear the edit fields if necessary and set the Z angle to 360 degrees. Click Cyclic and click Draw. When DP3 has finished drawing, you will see you are on frame 1. Deluxe Paint has moved one frame past the ending frame on our count. Shift 2 to go to the last frame, number 20, and you will see that the brush has not quite reached 360 degrees rotation on frame 20. Cyclic Selected has created an animation which starts and ends at the different points, which means, as I said, you can play it continuously without a hiccup. Press 4 to play. You see it rotates smoothly. Press spacebar to stop. Now draw the same without Cyclic selected. Clear the frames, stamp the brush down, and click Cyclic to deselect, and then click Draw again. As you can see, the draw is completed to 360 degrees on frame 20. Press 4 to play and you'll notice the hiccup. The hiccup is only very slight, but nevertheless it should be avoided. Why would you want cyclic ever turned off, you might ask? But if you want to move an object to a precise point, then you would need to turn cyclic off. Ease out and ease in on the move requester lets you specify the number of frames over which you can speed up or slow down your animation. The classic example is a bouncing ball, which needs to accelerate on the way down to be realistic. Clear all the edit fields and then exit from the move requester. And pick it up as a brush. Now, having set 20 frames, stamp the ball down in the bottom of the screen. First of all though, move to frame 20. Display the move requester and type in minus 170 in the Y distance. Type 10 in the Ease Out Edit field. This will accelerate the ball over the last 10 frames of the animation. Check the count is 20. Click the Go To and then click Draw. Select Control Play Ping Pong from the Annie menu or press 6 on the keyboard, and there you have your bouncing ball. But think about this. Are you wondering why you put the ball at the bottom of the screen and then selected a minus distance, which would normally take the ball further down? This is where the Come To option is very useful. You may very often find it easier to paint the brush down where you want the animation to end, rather than at the beginning of an animation. But remember to stamp your ball on the last frame when you select Come To and put a minus in front of the distance in the Y distance edit field. Now to show you the same effect with an animated brush, which we will also make. Now stamp the ball brush down and select the move requester by pressing Shift M. Enter 360 in the Z angle. Make sure cyclic is highlighted and the count is 20. Then click Draw. As you can see, our ball is being rotated. Now select Pick Up from the Annie menu and pick up the ball like a normal brush. You'll notice the brush rotating as D-Paint automatically flips the frames to pick up the animated brush. To confirm that you have the brush, hold the left mouse button down and move the mouse. Clear all frames and duplicate the bouncing ball animation. This time I shall double the frames to 40 and make the ball spin off to the right. As you can see, iron brushes are a very powerful tool, which has made Deluxe Paint 3 such a popular package. Now to show you how the animation at the beginning of this tape was done. We will start by drawing a rough sketch of the world. Please bear with me at this stage. When drawing your map, don't worry too much about detail, as once animated, all your detail will be lost, unless you recreate a large globe and do lots of frames. outline is done, mark the top of the picture into sections. I'll use the spacing on the line tool, and I'll set N total to 19. This will give me 9 spaces either side of the centre point. Now when you see the world, you only see half at a time, as the other half is at the back. So now pick up half of the earth, using our marker at the top as a guide. Now select the Fill Requester by clicking the Fill Circle tool with the right mouse button. Now select From Brush icon and then Wrap icon. You'll notice a little window in the requester now holds a picture of your brush. Now click OK. Press J to go to the spare page. Now draw a large filled circle. As you will see, our brush has been wrapped around the circle, giving the globe. Now clear the screen and set the frames to 13. Select Continuous from the Line tool and draw a large crosshair. Next, draw a circle around it using the centre point for the circle. Go to Anim Frame menu and copy to all. This copies our crosshair to every frame. The reason for the crosshair is so that all our globes are the same size and in the same position on each frame. Now select the filled circle again and draw the globe again using our guide. Now press J and select Brush Tool and pick up the next section. Return by pressing J and advance one by pressing the 2 key and select the filled circle, then paint the second globe. Repeat this sequence until the whole picture has been picked up. That will take you to frame 10. You still haven't finished yet. You now need to move the front of the brush to the back or vice versa and carry on picking up the brush until one position before you started. Now that's done, you need to press the 4 key to check it spins OK. When it does, you need to pick it up as an animated brush. Mind you, we need to get rid of the guide which is left around our globe. First the hard way. Select Magnify tool and delete by hand. Second, the easy way. Select Stencil Make and select the two world colours and click on Make. Now go to frame 1 and select Clear tool and clear all frames. This will get rid of all the excess rubbish around your globe. Now switch stencil off. Select Pick Up from the Animation Brush menu. That is your animated brush complete. So now save it to disk from the Animation Brush menu. Our original estimation of 13 frames wasn't sufficient for our purpose, so as you probably noticed we added 5 more frames. Let's get back to the rest of the animation. We shall now show you how the text rose out of the water. Select 64 colours from Screen Format on the Picture menu. This will take us into half bright mode. This is where the whole palette of 32 is duplicated at half brightness. It is ideal for shadows and reflections. Select the palette by pressing P. Now find a nice dark blue and copy it to another square, so we have 2 of the same colour. Now select a light blue for the sky and the Fill Rectangle tool. Press F10 to hide the menu bar and tools and paint the sky. Press F10 to return the menu and tools. Now select the first dark blue and paint an inch of water. Then select the second blue and paint the rest. The reason for this is so that we can make a stencil later, so that the text can rise from the middle of the water. Now load in some fonts. I will use the Chisel font from the D-Paint 3 art disc. Type your text on the spare page and pick it up as a brush. Now we need to do a reflection too. Flip your brush vertically from the brush menu. Stamp the brush down and select Half Bright from the Mode menu. You'll notice the brush now looks like a dark shadow. Position it over the reverse text and stamp it down. That's our darker reflection. Pick up our main text and return to the main screen. Set frames to 60. Because we already had our sky and water, it was automatically copied to all frames. Now select Make Stencil and click on the lower water and then Make. You will now notice our brush behind the water, but on top of the upper. Stamp the brush about 1 pixel below the water. Select the Move Requester with Shift and M keys. Set count to 25. Set Y distance to 55. When you are doing this, click on Preview to check it rises in the right direction. We will just click on Draw in this example. Now press Shift M again for the Move Requester. Click on Clear and set count to 10. Hit Draw. The Move Requester automatically remembers the last position of the brush. This will just stamp down 10 more in the same place. Select the Move Requester once again and set count to 25, Y distance to -55, Now press the 4 key for a quick preview. Go back to the spare screen and pick up the reflection brush. Return to the main screen and select Stencil Make. Clear the stencil and select the sky and upper water and select all the colours of the gold text above. Line up your reflection, then go to page 1 by pressing the 1 key. Now stamp your brush down, being careful not to move the mouse. Select the Move Requester again and do everything again. Setting count to 25 and Y distance to -55. Click Draw. Move requester again, select clear and set count to 10. Move requester again, set count to 25 and Y distance to 55. Press the 4 key for another preview. Now switch the stencil off. Go to spare page and draw a thin line for a brush. Return to the main screen and go to frame 1. Select Smear from the Mode menu or press F4. Now advance your frames one by one, smearing the reflection with this thin brush. Once all the frames are done, press the 4 key to see the finished product. If you are working on a 1 meg machine, you will not be able to fit the rising oyster on as well, so save this to disk and clear all frames. Now to create the oyster. This is very easy and uses most of the techniques we have just learned. Select the filled ellipse tool to aid you in drawing your oyster and then draw away. Once drawn, pick it up as a brush and do a vertical flip. And select half bright to darken the reflection. Now double click on the brush tool and cut out the two halves of the shell. Go to the main screen and set frames to 50. Pick up the complete oyster and stamp on frame 1. Call the move requester. Press clear and set count to 5. Now get the bottom half of the shell from the spare screen. Print it directly over the bottom of the main shell on frame 5. Call the move requester, set count to 46. Now get the top half of the shell from the spare screen. Go to frame 5 and overlay it on the top half of the shell. Call the move requester again and set count to 10. Set Y to 50. Once drawn, call move requester and set count to 20 and click on clear. Once drawn, call move again and set count to 10. Set Y distance to -50. Now stamp the brush down to join the shell and call move again. Set count to 6 and click on clear. Now press key 4 for a preview. As you can see, the shell is opening and closing. Now let's fill in the background of the shell. Go to frame 15 where the shell is fully open. Select the curve tool and draw like so. Then fill in the background. Make a stencil of the shell, but not of the inner colour of the shell, and pick up the inner part as a brush. Now click it back in position and call the Move Requester. Set count to 21. All the opening and closing frames you will have to do by hand. Now load in your spinning earth brush. Find the middle position at the shell's widest point. Then go back to frame 6 by pressing the 1 key. Stamp the brush down and call Move Requester. Set count to 40 and click on Draw. As the stencil was left on, the word is printed neatly inside the shell. It just shows how powerful the stencil command is. Now do a little cleaning up. Leave the stencil on whilst cleaning the edges. It's a lot quicker, as you can see. Now press the 4 key to see it play. To do the reflection, it's just a matter of flipping each image one by one and also entering half bright as before and smearing the reflection. Now we have shown you all the component parts of the animation. Now it is up to you. Here is the finished animation for you to see again. This is now the end of the animation tutorial, but if you are interested, we have compiled a text animation to show that DP3 can be used for text manipulation, which can be particularly interesting for video applications. For practice, we suggest you try and duplicate this, substituting your own angles, etc. Page. I used the grid to place the letters in position accurately, so let's proceed. Set 220 frames. Pick up brush from spare page and return to main page. Go to frame 220. Pressing Shift 2 takes you to the last frame, i.e. 220. Remember this command. Click down brush. Pick up letter T and stamp down directly over the T, then click Undo. This makes certain DP knows where you want the letter to finish. Go to frame 30 by pressing 3 on keyboard and typing in 30. Click OK. You are now on frame 30. Select Move Requester by pressing Shift M. Type 30 in frame counter, -70 in Y distance, 170 in Z distance, and 360 in Z angle. Make sure brush windows and cyclic are not selected. Click Come To. Click Preview if you wish. If OK, click Draw. If you have clicked Preview before you proceed, make certain you are back on frame 30. The T is now in its required position, so we must stamp it on all the other frames. Display Move Requester. Clear all edit fields. Type 190 in counter. Click Go From. Click Draw. It takes a little while to stamp the T on all the other frames. When complete, go to frame 220 again. Pick up letter E, stamp over E and click Undo. We have created a movement with the T over the first 30 frames, so now go to frame 60. By pressing 3 or typing in 60, select Move Requester. Type 30 in counter. Type Z distance 170, Y distance -70, Z angle 360, click Come To, click Draw. When finished, select Move Requester. Clear all fields. Type 160 in counter. Click Go From. Click Draw. Letter E is now in place on all frames. Go to frame 220. Pick up the N, same procedure as before. Move to frame 90. Display move requester, enter 30 frames, type 360 in X angle, Y distance 90, click come to, click draw. Display move requester, clear all fields, type 130 in counter, click go from, click draw. Go to frame 220 and pick up E in the same manner. Go to frame 120, display move requester, type X distance 90, Y angle 360, click come to, type 30 in counter, click draw. Display move requester, clear all fields, type 100 in counter, click go from, click draw. Go to frame 220 and pick up D. Go to frame 150, display move requester, type 30 in counter, type minus 90 in X distance, minus 360 in Y angle, click come to, click draw. Display move requester, clear all fields, type 70 in counter, click go from, click draw. All letters now in place except the H, which we shall bounce in position. Go to frame 220 and pick up H. but this time click down just above the N. Click Undo and go to frame 170. Select Move Requester, enter Y distance -90. Enter 20 frames. Enter 10 in ease out to accelerate over last 10 frames. Click Come To, click Draw. Select Move Requester, enter Y distance 80, click Go From, enter 20 frames, enter 10 in ease in to decelerate over last 10 frames, click Draw. Display Move Requester, enter -60 in Y distance, click Go From, enter 14 frames, enter 7 in ease in to decelerate, click Draw. Display Move Requester, enter 35 in Y distance, click Go From, enter 10 frames, enter 8 in ease in, click Draw. Display Move Requester, enter -31 in Y distance, click Go From, enter 9 frames, enter 9 frames in ease in, click Draw. Go to Annie menu, select Control Set Rate, type 10 in Edit field for a suitable speed, click OK, press 5 to play once. You perhaps notice that when you stamped to the remaining frames after positioning each letter that we finished at frame 219 each time. This was deliberate because we had already positioned the fill title on frame 220. You might also have expected the number of frames we added to have taken us to frame 220. The reason they didn't is because when we added, for instance, 190 frames from frame 30, Deluxe Paint includes frames 30 as the first frame. For the same reason, when we manipulated the H over 70 frames from frame 150, The total number of frames we entered in the move requester was 73, to ensure that we finished on frame 219. Perhaps you would find it easier to advance one frame and then enter the number arrived at by the direct calculation. Which way you prefer is entirely up to you, but remember you can always check exactly where you are after each stage as you compile your animations simply by watching the frame number in the menu bar or going to a particular frame for visual confirmation. I will now say goodbye. We hope you have found this tutorial interesting and helpful and that you will enjoy using DP3 as much as we have enjoyed compiling this video.